Right, I'm gonna address a question I've gotten across harvest, some of my harvest videos. Why do we swath crops for instead of taking them straight? Short answer is try to get the crop off at a quicker amount of time. You know, speed up the process to get hopefully better quality grain. And to ingest less green material in the machine too. So that's the short answer. But for the long answer, detailed answer here. Reason number one why we have a swather and why we swath crops. Number one is, well, we still got some organic crops yet. So swather is kind of required for that. We do take straight what we can. But if we have weed pressure, yeah, it's gotta be swathed because weeds add moisture, so, and plus green material too, so we gotta swath it down first, so. But reason number two is just to get it off at a quicker time. If we have a open window, you know, like for example, the oats and flaxeed too, two examples I can use. You know, the heads, the seed themselves can be dry, but the plant could still have a lot of moisture, a lot of green material yet, especially flax. And so, don't really want to be ingesting as much green. Oats aren't as bad, but flax can be, no. Don't want to do it. That can cause a whole slew of problems. Basically, with flax is that it likes to wrap anything, especially when it's green. It's like wire. It'll just wrap on everything, ball up, bunch up somewhere, jam stuff up, and it just goes through terribly hard. So you don't really want to be doing that, especially on a year like this year when you have a lot of inconsistencies in the crop with extreme weather. Kind of have to swath. Some years aren't like this, you know, where we'll take a lot more of the oat straight. We've actually taken flax straight too without doing anything to it. But the year's got to be right for that though. And a year like this year when you got a lot of inconsistencies in the crop, yeah, swathing helps. It used to be more years ago, but like with our flaxseed, for example, company that kind of would handle it for us. They preferred to have it non-desiccated. There was more of a premium years ago. The reason why we got to quit spraying down our flaxseed. That's why we went swathing. That's why we got a self-propelled swather too now, for that reason yet. One of the people I truly believe there's a problem with desiccating crops as in chemical residue being left on the grain. It's not like in the growing season when you spray, you know, Mother Nature has a chance to take its course and purge everything on its own. When you desiccate a crop for curing down, there ain't much time for that to cure or to purge itself. So you wonder why traces of chemicals come up in labs and everything too in it. With our flaxseed too, like most of the time when our flaxseed gets taken out, some of the companies that do buy it from us, they test for that stuff. So, but me personally, I don't think I'd ever desiccate a crop ever again unless it's dire or something, you know, for some circumstances or something, maybe the swather breaks down or something, yeah, then maybe then I'll have to then, but if I don't have to, I won't. So either swath it or take it straight. But those are kind of the main reasons why we do swath. But swathing isn't all what it makes to be too, because, well, I mean, you can have pull-type swathers. Pull-type swathers can be fairly cheap, you know, but they're not as fun to run. There's a little more to it. You're looking behind you, and that's why we got our self-propelled machine now. A little more easier. You can cover a lot more acres more efficiently. So there's, you know, it actually costs a little more because you got to have that equipment then when guys can just take their sprayers, you know, and go down the field if they want something to cure down faster. Plus, kind of have to mind the weather too with swathing certain crops. Like oats, for example, aren't as bad with wind, heavy rain. It's actually better. Like if you get heavy rain on ripe oats, like it's better for it to be swathed because you don't have the chance of it knocking the grain on the ground. But still have trouble with, you know, sprouting and whatnot too, of course. There's always a drawback there. But wind isn't as big of a deal. But like for flaxseed, swathing, canola as well, you gotta mind the weather when you're swathing, because if you decide to swath it and then all of a sudden you have a super windy day then, or a freak storm pop up, that can take the windrows away. And from recent memory for me, I think that was 2020 or 2019. I don't remember what year it was, but a freak storm kind of came up, and yeah, we had a couple fields blow, but Didn't lose too much of the flax, but it did roll the windrows in the field though, quite a ways. So that's one drawback with swath. Plus with swathing too, there's always the chance of, you know, knocking grain on the ground. Like when we're swathing oats, yes, we probably do have a little bit of loss from the header itself. You know, a little bit of grain probably does end up on the ground when it's getting, you know, that extra, you know, it's not just like feeding it straight into here, where if, you know, if kernels fall off the plant, it's going to end up on the table here and go into the combine then. But with swathing though, well, it's got to go on the ground. So there are some header losses there from that. Depends on how ripe it is and everything. You know, if it's plant is still green yet and everything's still holding together really well, probably be very little to none. But the riper it gets, you know, then swathing, you know, isn't worth it then anymore. So which is why, like, for some of the oats we had this year where it was lodged bad, we waited a little bit longer. Well, that was just what happened with this harvest, you know. But we ended up taking straight some of it then. Worked out good. I mean, but those are the biggest drawbacks though, is, you know, you got to have the, you know, more equipment. You can't cover as much ground versus like spraying or just, you know, one less pass the field and just taking it straight, unless you're spraying it down. But, or, you know, some header loss you can have from swathing too. I mean, yeah, me personally, yeah, I wish I could take everything straight. No questions asked. That's one less pass down the field. Less header loss. It's just easier. It's quicker. But we got to get the crop off in a certain amount of time instead of letting it trying to cure down on its own, or let's say, or if you got some weed pressure, yeah, swathing helps. Oh yeah, there's another thing too, like with spraying down crops too. Say if you just, I mean, just take a hole up, but say if you have some super weeds in there, like for us, kochia or water hemp, you know, if you got a crop that you want to cure down quicker, say if you got just a couple weeds in there, big weeds, you think spraying a chemical on there is going to kill them? Probably not. They might wilt quite a bit, but they're going to recover then. If you get any rain then, they'll recover, and guess what? They're probably going to go up to seed then. And yeah, and then you wonder why resistances start too. You know, it's one of those things. That's probable cause there. So that's another reason why I don't like desiccating fields, is because, well, if you have any amount of weeds, even along the edge of the fields or in some sloughs where you didn't plant, if you got bigger weeds, it's probably not a good idea. You might have trouble in the future. I mean, it depends on what sprays you use, but for desiccating a crop, though, there's only certain sprays you should use because, well, some of those, I'll say this right now, some of those chemicals are nasty. Some are nasty, and if there's not enough time for Mother Nature just to take care of it on her own, it's not good. It isn't good. So that's why being both having some organic crops as well as conventional, you know, you kind of get in the know-how of both systems, how they work. There's good and bad to both. Like organic, you're kind of held back on certain things you can do, like zero chemical, can't do it. That's probably the biggest thing. So, and for us around here, tillage, I hate tillage around here with some of this light soil here. I just hate it. So, like I say, there's drawbacks to everything, but there's also good aspects to each system, though. So that's kind of why we swath around here, I guess. I mean, it's a dying thing right now, but I don't know. I think there's still a place for you. I know the further north you get, North America, you know, the more you see it, like in Canada yet, and the further south you get, I don't think there's hardly anything, if anything at all. You know, that's why when we bought this machine, Draper Ready, basically the only place where you can find them is Canada, and even just very few machines in North Dakota, and you know, it's rare. It's pretty rare. So, but when we did buy this thing though, with the Draper head, you know, I eventually bought my haybine head to give this machine another use, since we make hay too. So, kinda made this machine more useful instead of just for swathing a few hours out of the year. Bought a haybine head for it, so get a little more use out of it. With us, since we have a variety of crops, I mean, in our days on this farm, we've grown barley, wheat, durum, flax, rye, corn, beans. Some crops, they need to be swathed. Like flaxeed is kind of a, that's why not too many people grow flaxseed. It's a very finicky crop. And you can have a miserable time harvesting if not done properly. You're gonna have a heck of a time. That's why not too many people grow it. Plus the markets too. You gotta have a market for stuff too. But you know, that's for another story. That swathers used to. I mean, we pretty much swathed over half our acres this year, which is unreal. Usually that doesn't happen. But then some years, depends on what we're growing. Like, say if we have more corn or beans one year and hardly any flax or something like that, maybe more wheat, you know, something like that. Maybe you don't hardly have to swath anything. Maybe if it's really nice and consistent throughout most of the year, not too many, it's curing down good, it had a good growing season. Maybe it'll cure down fairly even and we'll just take it straight then when the time comes. So it's one of those things. When you can get them off then in a reasonable amount of time to keep that quality. That's the biggest thing. That's what we saw. So eventually the swather does pay for itself. One of those things, we got a variety of crops, you know, some crops that kind of are known to be swathed, you know, it helps. So plus it's one of those things you get in colder climates too, like, you know, you get more into Canada, you know, swathing works better versus desiccating because, well, desiccating takes time for that chemical and everything, the plant to uptake it and then you weather for curing it, but you know, we get in colder climates, it doesn't work as good. That's where just cutting the crop, zapping it of that moisture intake will cure it down the best way. So that's as much as I know. There's probably a few other reasons, you know, to swath or not to swath, but those are pretty much the main ones that I've come across.